There were times I was lost, dark had fear, couldn't see through the rain. In the end it was clear, hit the fan. I was more than one man who was there to lend a hand. Together we'd stand, always at my back, my guardian soldier. Team put together, united we conquer. Blessed is he who in the name of charity carry me when I'm weak straight through the valley of darkness. Pitch blackness, the heartless, regardless, fear couldn't part us. Thick and thin, there by my side. At times we collide, but in the end we ride. Thick and thin, there by my side. At times we collide, but in the end we ride. We ride, ride. I am my brother's keeper. Keep on holding strong. United we stand, divided we fall. Together we belong. I am my brother's keeper. Keep on holding strong. United we stand, divided we fall. Together we belong. I am my brother's keeper. I am my brother's keeper. I am my brother's keeper.
Welcome back, Moto fans. We have got another great show lined up for you today for another episode of ProMX Between the Rounds. Before we get into it, today's show is brought to you by Wonthaggi Motorcycles and Power Equipment, graphics by Aqua, Death Grip Products, Southeast Pools, Wolf Building Compliance, Works Racing, and the June sponsor of our motocross and supercross wall calendars, MX Conditioning Coach. Okay, joining me on the line to cover all of the key talking points from the ProMX series, the Outside Gate's Steve Hall. Or should it be Rido Moto's Steve Hall? Steve?
Well, I guess it's sort of both at the moment, yeah. So the Outside Gate has been my show that has been running for a while, and Rido Moto is sort of my new thing to focus, to really focus down hard on the Aussie scene. So,
but Rido Moto is more YouTube centric, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Yep. So what do you got going on about that? I know, but for the listeners, tell me a little bit about what's happening with Rido Moto.
Yeah, cool, man. So, I sort of, come up with some ideas and did some groundwork and got around all the early rounds this year. And then from Traralgon, I did a little video and started doing some little video interviews and started a YouTube channel to do that. And it is called Rido Moto. So that's pretty easy to find. As we speak, I am working on a same sort of little video for the round just gone. So trying to drag a little bit of fun, a little bit of personality out of the people in the pits is the big goal. I'm not a big news breaker sort of a guy. I'm more of I like to get the personality out of people. So a bit like you do too, Pete, with your interviews.
For sure. So who did you end up catching up with after Warwick?
After Warwick, I caught up with Jed Alsop and caught up with Haruki Yokoyama. So I caught up with those teammates, which was actually a coincidence, because I had a couple of those two in mind before I even really clicked that they were teammates. And Felicity Shrimpton, who has been out there racing with the boys at Team XLR on a Triumph. And also caught up with Kyle Woods Mechanic. I'm going to try and do a mechanic each round. So caught up with Ty Woods Mechanic, Tom, and his surname is escaping me right now. and it was actually good, sometimes people are a bit nervous, but I find same with my long form shows. I tend to have a bit of a knack of getting people to relax and open up. So,
that's very cool, man. So I guess by the time this show comes out, that'll be up on YouTube. So. How do people find you?
Yeah, so just on YouTube, it's just Rido Moto. So RIGHTO MOTO, and that's pretty easy to find. And there's a little introduction video there that just sort of tells you a little bit briefly about who the hell I am. Like who is this bloke, and other things I've done in the past, and other things I'm still doing. I've done lots of, well, not lots, but quite a few little bits and pieces of media. And then the first video there from Traralgon and the Warwick one will be up shortly, and looking forward to doing some more and probably bringing there'll be a little bit that's, I guess, with that brand that's specifically Aussie targeted, to try and probably do some sort of an audio thing at some stage as well, some sort of a podcast that's maybe a bit something a bit different to what everyone else is doing is what I usually like to do. So. Yeah, that'll be up and coming. I think there's certainly space for it, Pete. It's great what you're doing, and but there's, when you look at the Aussie scene, and I've actually had people say it to me, there's not that many podcasts that are talking about the Aussie scene,
Yep.
So,
yep.
And I certainly like to talk, and I certainly like moto, and I like the Aussie scene. So I'm going to have a crack at that. But, I'm not sure when that'll get up and running, but probably by the end of the year, I would say.
No, sick, man. Well,
Yeah.
I don't want the competition, so, my goal is going to be to squash you like a bug, but no, just kidding. No, that's awesome, dude. I can't wait to check out your last video. We did a bit of a project as well that I've sort of had in the brain for about a year and a half, and I had a little bit of a quieter weekend behind the camera, I think just because of the gate numbers being down. So, yeah, it turned out to be a great opportunity to get this project underway. It's kind of like a documentary style thing. It'll be a little bit more long form. So
Yep.
At least within a couple of days of this show going live, listeners will be able to find it on the Mental4Moto YouTube channel as well. I'm not going to say too much other than I had a lot of fun doing it. So hopefully it comes out all right. It's going to be a bit of work, but it should be sort of a 30 to 45 minute documentary style show. So, yeah. Like I said, it's been a long time coming, and now that I've got it underway, I'm going to try get another show done and keep that going at Canberra for the next round as well. So, yeah.
I look forward to seeing that, Pete. I like it, and like I said, I think there's a need for it. I think I'm allowed to say it because that's not a thing anymore, but when Moto Limited finished up, it left a bit of a void in the Aussie-centric, I guess, podcast sort of scene there. So I think what you're doing and what I'm trying to do is, hopefully going to fill a little bit of that gap. So
no, I think there's a lot of room for a lot more content, and everyone's got a different approach and a different style, and
that's right.
Listeners and fans and stuff will gravitate to sort of what they like. And the funny thing is, I you would have experienced this now in the media center as well. There's like a real competitive sort of nature in the media side of things. But I find that strange because just because someone listens to my podcast doesn't mean they're not going to listen to yours, and vice versa, And
yeah.
So I think fans consume like all different types of content. It's not one or the other type situation. So yeah, man.
I think it actually, like, I'm pinching this from Steve Mathis, and he's a guy who knows what he's talking about. That's for sure. Rising tide lifts all boats,
Totally agree.
And, if you think about what Steve does, Steve has people from all other podcasts come on his show. They talk about their podcasts on his show. And I think that, I think the key is to get people listening to moto podcasts for a start, and then they'll choose the ones they like, and half a chance once they get right into it and become more of a consumer of podcasts, they'll listen to several of them. And, some people, won't like what I do. Some people will, and that's cool because then you find your audience and that sort of thing. And, I think what you're doing is different. And I know my sort of weird, rough around the edges take on things is definitely different to everyone else. That's for sure. So, yeah. And I think too, man, like I'm just speaking for myself, and I see it in you. I'm 49 years old, man, and what I'm trying to get out of this is enjoyment, connection, fulfillment,
purpose,
all that sort of stuff, and purpose. And I'm really genuine about that. I'm not like a young gun looking to make my fortune or anything like that. Like, I just genuinely want to do it. Like I for what I'm doing right now, like I barely have any sponsorship, and so it is at the stage where it's just costing me money, but I'm having a lot of fun. So and I hope to get it, as we all do, to a stage where I make a little bit of money out of it, but that's not the goal. It's just to be involved. How good is this sport? How good is it?
Yeah, for sure. I think
it's the best thing ever.
If you're looking to get rich, motocross is the wrong tree to be barking up.
That's right. Yeah. So you do something different, So yeah, it's about the love. So yeah.
As you sort of mentioned, we've just come back from Warwick in Queensland for round 5 of the ProMX. Before we get into sort of some of the news and the results and the action that took place up there, We were just talking off air. So on your way home from Warwick, you had a bit of an interesting journey and a bit of a story to tell.
Yeah. I suppose not that interesting really, but a story to tell. I sat next to Jed Beaton on the flight home. And as I said to Pete just before, I'm a guy, I'm pretty good at reading the room, I know that if I'd raced all day and was tired and worn out and sore and jammed in the middle seat on a flight home on the red eye on Sunday night, I don't want to be talking to some media guy. And so I left him the hell alone. I said g'day and just whatever, how are you? A couple of brief things, and then just left him alone. So, and like I said to Pete, if it was the flight there, I probably would shoot his ear off asking him questions, because that's a different sort of situation. But yeah. Like I said to Pete, the flight there was two red eyes home basically to Victoria, and they combined them onto one plane. So the flight before mine got pushed back, and they jammed us all on one plane. It's your chock-a-block 737, and all of Honda, all the CDR, all the Winner Triumph, a heap of other teams, pretty much everybody who trains at Beaton's.
Yep, there's a few of the Ride Red crew on there. I know, and
all their families and girlfriends and wives and all that was all on that same flight. So she was, we're all standing there at gate 22, and man, it's just moto as far as the eyes can see.
So basically, if that plane had gone down, Australian motocross, at least ProMX, would be that'd be pretty much half the field or more completely wiped out.
Nathan Crawford would be a champion. So there you go. And, Fergo and Nathan Crawford, that'd be in the box seat. So all the front runners were there, all 3 points leaders and that sort of thing, and Craig and Urive and the whole everyone. So
yeah, well, I'm glad you and everyone else made it home in one piece.
Yeah, absolutely. And then even on the shuttle bus out to the hire car, there was moto people jamming into there there was plenty of Ogio bags getting jammed in on the shuttle bus, So yeah. But it was funny, like you'd think there'd be a lot of bench racing going on with that many people, but not on a Sunday night waiting for the red eye. Like there wasn't a lot of talking or laughing going on. There's just most people were just standing there waiting. Yeah, it was pretty somber, sort of everyone just a bit worn out and wanting to get home. So, but yeah, that was interesting. And it's a bit funny, imagine Jed getting there and he's sitting next to some damn media guy, like he'd be just thinking, oh shit, but yeah,
asking questions.
I wasn't gonna.
Yeah,
and it was quite funny because while we're waiting for takeoff, I'm going through my phone. I'm going through my photos on my phone, and like there's heaps of them of him. So I'm literally like blowing up photos and checking these photos if they're any good. And the guy that I've taken the photo, I'm sitting next to me. So
it could have been a long flight for Jed.
Yeah.
Like you had a captive audience, mate. You did.
If it was a media guy that wanted to chew his ear, here's me chance to bug the shit out of him. He can't get away. I'm gonna get my notebook out and get the voice recorder out.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm pretty sure he would have had a few choice words.
Yeah.
if you had been that guy, but yeah, you're not.
Like I said, I'm pretty good at reading the room, and I was in this instance. But funny stuff, man. Yeah, that's for sure. I was glad to get home anyway. Very much glad to get home by the time I got to the airport, and then the shuttle bus, and then about a 3-hour drive home. So yeah, fly south and then drive back north. But it was a good weekend though, Pete, wasn't it?
It was a really, really good weekend. It was the first time I've actually driven up to Queensland, and I say driven, but I was chauffeured. I sat in the jump seat of Chandler Burns' dad, Michael Burns' car, and went up with him, and that was actually a lot of fun. And I actually learned a lot, about the amount of effort that goes into a privateer program and getting these guys to the races, especially when it's so far away. And he had other riders' gear in the trailer as well. So he brought up 2 of Balin Townsend's bikes and a bunch of stuff for other riders, and we sort of convoyed with the Strodes. So they were behind as well. So it was cool. It was a learning experience. 18 hours in the car, one way and $2,000 in fuel. It's a massive effort that these guys have to undertake to get to the races. Like I had an amazing weekend, but like I said, I learnt a lot as well, and it was very, very cool.
How does the how do the Burnses travel? Like, what are we listening to? Are they rocking out like I would, or are they like got podcasts going, or what's the vibe like in the Burnses bus?
Well, Chandler flies up. So he doesn't have to sit in the car for 18 hours.
Yeah,
so, yep, it was just me and Burnsy. And no, we chatted. We had some lively debates about things, about moto-related things, about sand tracks and which tracks are sand and which tracks are just sandy and rough.
Yeah. We
listened to some moto podcasts. We listened to some music. But overall, it was all very, very chill, I think. Yeah, I mean, when you're spending sort of a total of 36 hours in the car with someone, I think you got to keep it sort of around the 5. You don't want to go too high or too low. So it was.
I can maintain about an 8 for a fair while, Pete. So.
All right. Well, I'll keep that in mind if I ever have to spend 18 hours in the car with you. Yeah.
That's it.
That's gold.
No, I get what you mean, though. Yeah. Like, no, I have my moments. It's not a rock concert all the time.
Yep. Yeah. No, that's all cool. All right. So, Warwick, mate, what did you think? It's the first time the ProMX has been there. We'll start with the actual venue. It was really big, very spacious. I thought the pit layout, like it was good in terms of easy to navigate, but I don't think it sort of really channeled the crowds, into, especially sort of the way it was sort of set up with the factory pit.
Yeah.
It reminded me of like one of those old country and western movie sets, with just the front, the building front.
Just the long street with, I get what you mean. Yeah.
And nothing around it, nothing behind it.
Well, there you go. If it was one of those streets, Pete, there you go. You get your Byron Dennis. Just that you should have been carrying the 6-shooter.
Exactly.
With the boots and the hat.
Trotting down there on a horse. Yep.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, the privateer section was sort of around the corner and
around the corner, yeah.
Yeah, but there was, I think, the podium should have been in between those two sections as opposed to up the far end. The food trucks would have been better in between and sort of just to funnel some of those fans into the privateer area as well. But being the first time out there, I'm sure they're sort of figuring it all out. And I guess the thing that surprised me and maybe took a little bit of the atmosphere away was actually the space they've got there. It's really cool, like heaps of space for a ProMX, which is awesome. But it almost feels better sometimes, I think, when it's a little bit more condensed because it just gives us more of an atmosphere.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying for sure. Yeah, very spread out, heaps of space. So yeah, I'm not sure what else they would do other than just sort of set it up so you don't use as much space, I guess. But yeah, to try and keep everyone a bit closer. But yeah, I guess lots of space is a good problem to have, though, wouldn't it? Yeah,
massively. Yep, massively.
Probably with the way the spectators too, like you get all the spectators that come around to watch the start near the privateer area there. But then as soon as that was done, then that wasn't really a very good place to watch from,
Correct, yeah, too far, yep.
Everybody would then move right away from there to the other side. But, overall for a spectator track, it was pretty good. They can't all be like Terrelgan or Appin, from the top of the hill and that sort of thing where you can see everything. It is moto. So I think it'd be pretty cool. Something maybe for them to work towards would be to be able to get right around the track, which would require some fencing. Basically, it would be they just require fencing because there's sort of no fence there. That's why they had to have it like that. But to have some fencing off a certain distance off the track and that sort of thing, and have a walking path right around the back there, sort of like Terrelgan has, sort of like Appin has, and so you get right around. And then I guess the other thing was, the crowd numbers probably a little down, particularly in the afternoon, which I think we're going to talk about. So
yeah, I mean, for their first go, I thought like the club did a really, really good job. one thing that I always gripe about is those portaloos being lined up on the side of the track. They were set back a little bit. Definitely not as many portaloos in the background of camera shots, which is a massive bonus. That gets a big tick of approval from me. But yeah, as for the crowds, 2.5 hours drive from the Gold Coast, it really is in the middle of nowhere. Warwick's got, I think, a population I read of about 12,000 people. So it is a small town, and it's a long way from anything. So that's got to play into it.
Yeah, it has to,
I didn't think the crowd was too bad.
In the middle of the morning, it wasn't too bad. It was certainly not a big crowd, but it wasn't too bad. Even up to like the first MX1 race was probably the best of the crowd. And even around lunchtime, there was a lot of people there and that. But sort of shortly after lunch, after the first MX1 race, it's like I reckon 2/3 of them just disappeared after that. So I don't know if there was something else they were going to, or it's not like you'd swear it started pouring rain, like the crowd, and if anyone's going to know, it's me. Like I'm taking photos, but I'm not an on-track photographer. So I am constantly from one end of the spectator area to the other at each round.
Yep.
And so I'm your guy who can tell you what the crowd was like. Short of, the guy that sells the tickets, I'm probably the next best guy. I'm really seeing it all. And they just disappeared in a big chunk. So maybe something else was on. I don't know.
Yeah, you'd have to think so because, the racing all day
was good.
Really
racing
good.
Was good, yeah.
Yep. We haven't got onto the track yet, but the racing was fantastic. And I think from a spectator basis, like you could see a lot of the track from the spectator areas, which was cool as well.
You could do, yep.
Yep. And
you're quite close in spots too.
Yep.
The way it was, like you were quite close to the inside of some corners and quite close to some straights, comparative to many other tracks, It was really good to watch, especially like up sort of around the back, closest to the road in, up around that back section there. That's a really good spectator spot.
Yep.
That's sort of my favourite spot that I found, that's for sure. So,
all right.
Some good action there too.
As for the track itself, beyond producing some good racing, what were your thoughts about the track? Straight off the bat, it was quite a simple track. It's fairly flat. There's not a lot of elevation. There was maybe one big jump, like one big tabletop, and even that was probably only, 40, 50 foot max. So it was a very simple track. The dirt, I think, is what made it interesting and challenging for the riders. But what were your thoughts on the track?
Yeah, look, I guess when it comes to me, like I may be even the wrong person to ask, but I'm going to still tell you what I think because, like, I'm pretty easily pleased if the racing's good.
Yep.
I think it's funny. You always get pretty, depending on what your background is what people think of tracks. So your faster riders don't sort of like any track. There's always something wrong with the track. And then your privateers and that sort of thing, they'll sort of have their favorite that they'll like and one that they won't. Anybody that's ever driven machinery will nitpick the shit out of the prep
and the dirt.
And it wasn't prep, then it wasn't dirt, and it's not this and it's not that, and they'll fuss over like an old lady about the prep. Anyone that's ever set foot in a Caterpillar will do that. So there's all these different sort of things depending on your experience. And, like I've ridden moto very badly, but my main thing throughout my life is a spectator who loves it. So I just look, was the racing good? Then I like the track. Basically simple as that. Like the only time I'm going to complain about a track is if the prep or the style of track makes it super one line and then the racing's bad.
Yes.
That's the only time I won't like a track. So, I liked it. And also just talking to riders through the weekend, even after Saturday track walk, even before the track walk, they seemed pretty excited about this place looks really good, So, and nobody apart from some of the locals really knew what to expect because
the Sunny States was a mutter.
That a bunch of people came to a little while ago was a mutter. So that who knows what, they didn't sort of tell them anything. Walking around, it seemed pretty similar to Traralgon, pretty similar to Gilman, that sort of, it was kind of, that sort of sandy, hard-based track.
Yep.
So we've had a few in a row that are a bit similar, I guess. I liked it. I didn't really mind that there was kind of only one big jump. That's maybe something that I think if you're trying to drag in spectators, your average Joe spectator who got a trail by, doesn't follow racing that close, but they're definitely going to come and have a look at this when it's on, near home. They want to see big jumps. Kids want to see big jumps. So maybe there's a spectator angle there to build up the jumps a bit bigger for a national. But otherwise, yeah, I thought the prep, the layout, all that, absolutely no complaints from me. And the only complaints I heard from anyone was, well, not even a complaint, but there was a little bit of constructive comments, I guess, from some of the top guys. But like I said, you're always going to get that. I don't reckon I've barely ever heard a top rider say how awesome a track was. It's never quite right, is it? So
some of the top guys do love Wonthaggi.
Yeah. But I suppose, that's their backyard though, too, so.
But I had this discussion with Burnsy on the way home where the really good skilled riders love the tracks that get mega rough because it creates that separation. And that's one perspective. But like you said, everyone has a different perspective. And I think from a fan, I actually don't mind the tracks that don't get as rough because it produces more lines and it bunches the field up closer together, which produces better racing. So I think there's sort of arguments for both. And I wouldn't want to see too much of one or the other sort of in a series. I think it's great to have a bit of both.
Yeah, there's a comment. I'm trying to think who said it, and they've said it several times. I could be wrong. I think it's Zach Osborne that says it, that simpler tracks make for better racing.
Yep, that's true. I think that's 100% true. Yeah. And this was a simpler track, certainly from the layout and the obstacles. I think the thing that made the track challenging was the dirt. It was sandy in places. It was hard pack in places. And it
actually got very hard in spots, didn't it?
And it was a mix in other places. And one thing I know, talking to a lot of the riders as well, they were having trouble with the setup. And I think that made it really challenging. Like a lot were struggling with the setup. There was a lot of talk of arm pump. And the fact also that the track is always turning. Like there was very few straights without either rollers or anything. Like there was always bends. So and that's what made it super rough. And I think, for a lot of the riders when they were pinning it because it was a very fast track, it made it super sketchy as well. Like you saw so many riders swap out and for some that ended badly, but it kept.
It's actually like we got through, pretty good.
Yeah.
I know, and I never got to figure out who it was. I think there was an MX3 kid who he was sitting up and looked okay, but he went in the ambulance in the morning. But I never figured out. I
think that was Cooper Rowe.
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah. He came past me in the little buggy, and he was definitely not looking in like he was enjoying the trip.
Yep. And not much else though, I think. Not too much else. Yeah, I'm sure there was. There's always injuries, but there wasn't too much, and there was no no sort of we didn't lose any heavy hitters to anything major.
No, but there was a lot of pucker factor moments, I think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's
plenty of stained underwear there.
Oh,
that's for sure, yeah.
For sure. Like I think in that second moto, we'll get to that on a bit later. But I was watching Webster when Beaton was putting the pressure on, and I would have seen in the space of 2 laps there would have been 3 or 4 moments where I was like, whoa, like he just hung on to it.
Yeah, Jed's moment, probably the one that made him settle for second.
Yep,
that was. I thought he was a goner. Like,
was that like on the second last lap or something like that?
It was close to the end there.
Yeah,
he was. He sort of made it. He'd made a charge, and then I think Webby sort of whipped it up, and then Jed was making another charge. Like, this is the time.
Yep.
And he had 2 moments, and one of them was like, whoa, shit, man. Like, I thought it was all over. And after that, I think that's when he seemed to, certainly not settle or back off. I mean, what those two are doing is ridiculous. But I think he maybe settled for 99%, instead of 100.
Yeah. I mean, to sort of sum it up as far as the track goes, though, like back to the track, I think the club did an amazing job. I think the prep was really, really good. It wasn't too wet, it wasn't too dry, and I thought
it was great.
Yep. It certainly was challenging. It produced some great racing. And speaking of lenses, like I'm obviously out there working as a photographer.
Yeah.
And that was the bit for me that it took a little bit of the shine off. I found as a photographer, it was just a little bit boring to shoot. Like there just wasn't a lot of good obstacles. There was not a lot of good vantage points where there was sort of a good obstacle where the rider's getting some body language happening, or you're getting the bike working, and that you could get sort of the event in the background. Like, it's good to get a shot of the bike working and the suspension compressing, or the rider like really working hard, and the crowd in the background or the banners in the background. And it was really hard for that. So, and that's obviously nothing to do with the club or anything like that. But for me, that was just one of the bits that I didn't necessarily love out there. And maybe a little bit of a tweak to the layout and some bigger jumps or some different obstacles would make a big difference there. But beyond that, I loved it. And like you said, at the end of the day, it's all about the racing. And it's sort of happened the last pretty much every round this season, actually, I should say. There was times I just wanted to put the camera down and watch, because there were so many good battles happening from up the front, and then even mid-pack. There was some amazing battles happening, and it was just unreal to watch from that perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to watch it back on TV. I haven't had a chance to yet, travel and day jobs getting in the way, but I can't wait to watch it back. And I'll echo what you said. Like, I think, the clubs, they did a great job, especially when you consider that's their first national.
Yep. Would I like to see another national there? 100%.
Yep.
Would I like to see a few little tweaks to the track layout? Yes. But that's purely from, the photography perspective, I think. It'd be nice just to have a few other little cool things happening out there that, I don't know, just add to the excitement. And it definitely changes the media that comes out afterwards as well, because I know a few of the other photographers felt the same way. So it wasn't just me.
And then also, Pete, like being able to load your photos and send them out to the world in a timely manner. So we've got to touch on that with the friendly people at Telstra letting us down.
Yes.
That's the only thing that we can I think anyone in the media can agree on is that Telstra sucks.
Yep.
And that was shit. So yeah.
All right. So I'd like to know what other events do. Certainly events that are sort of the scale of the ProMX, but would it be unreasonable to ask for the promoter to organise a Starlink for media? Is that too much to ask?
I don't think it's too much to ask. No.
Yeah, I mean, it would help them. Yeah. It would be to their benefit, I guess, at the end of the day. But we're still working from a tent with a dirt floor and chairs that are, in a state of disrepair.
I guess, like when we talked earlier on, we were talking about the amount of content that came out on Monday that would normally have come out on Sunday. There's just all this content coming out on Monday.
Yep. You basically got 2 days worth all coming out on Monday morning.
The effectiveness and the interest in it is 10% of what it would have been on Sunday, when people are actually thinking about it, interested in it, and know what's going on, and are actually, wanting to know what's happening. By the time Monday, it's still good to put things out. And, and I'm a small operator, but it's the same for, a lot of other guys that are bigger, more influence than me, like yourself, Pete, that people are, people want to see what you've got to say on Sunday morning. So, and I don't believe Starlink is actually that expensive. When there's media guys talking about getting their own Starlink, talking about that, it's not that expensive on the scale of things. So,
well, I think at Terralgan we ended up with some lights in the media centre. So maybe by 2027 we might have some have some Starlink. So we'll just keep asking for it, and I'm sure eventually it'll happen.
Yeah, that was Sunday morning at now that was actually Sunday morning at Appin, I think, was the first time we got the lights, wasn't it? I think Sunday morning at Appin, halfway through Appin, we got the lights.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So there you go. Because I remember Saturday night at Appin, I was working in the media tent with a headlamp on on Saturday night.
Yeah.
So yeah,
living the
Crazy
dream,
stuff.
mate. Living the dream.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
All right, well, let's get on to some of the results. We'll start with MX1. You know, it's the story of the season, I think, in this class. Obviously, the Beaton Webster battle. So
2-horse race. Yeah.
Yep. Before we sort of get onto the points and the championship side of things, it was a little bit different this weekend with Webster coming into the round banged up. He broke the little winglets off the side of his spine, so he was very, very beaten up, and I think he sort of downplayed it a little bit coming in, but that certainly impacted his racing, and then obviously he went down in the first moto as well. So that wasn't going to make him feel any better for the weekend, and I think that was a big story point in how the weekend played out.
Yeah, I think there's, to look at each of them, like for Jed, he sort of did what he had to do, did what he would have had to do anyway, but probably missed a little bit of an opportunity in Moto 2. He's probably spewing a little bit that he didn't get those points. That would have made it unreachable if he had with that 6-point swing. It's 15 now, could have been 21. But then the other side is hats off to Webby. Like, that's tough. That's tough as shit. Like what he did in Moto 2, man.
Yeah.
Like,
so I've heard
shit. That's tough.
I've heard a lot of criticism about Beaton about he should have tried harder, and I mean watching the racing, he was having moments. It was certainly a track that could bite you. There was a lot of riders that had tip overs. Fortunately, not injuries. But for me, I thought he rode it perfectly. The risk of going down and Webster, I guess, making up a lot more points was something that seems to have been overlooked. Like when I'm hearing these conversations, because I've heard this probably from 3 or 4, media outlets afterwards about Beaton should have put that nail in the coffin, but I think it could have gone the other way as well.
Yeah,
and, he walked away growing that lead. Like 15 points now is a big gap. It really means that Webster has to go 1-1, 1-1, 1-1 for the final 3 rounds, assuming the Beaton can go second. And barring disaster, the worst he can do is second. They're still so much faster than the next rider.
Yeah.
So, I think he's kind of played it perfectly, and he hasn't risked anything.
Yeah, I guess I suppose sort of to just drill down on where I'm coming from. Like, I agree that I think Jed gave it his all, and until the risk was he was giving it 99% because that risk at 100 late was going to bite him. So I think it's more of a case that I think that Jed would be more pissed about his start in Moto 2.
Yes,
because that was the difference. It was more of a case that Webby was probably better than he should have been. Like Webby dug deep and got her done, whereas because Jed started about, I haven't watched back yet, but I did watch the start. Jed was he was 4th, I reckon, off the start, 3rd into 3rd pretty quick. And Webby was out front, and that was the difference. That's the difference. And, I guess Jed would probably have thought that he could have caught him and got by with knowing what the injury was and that sort of thing. But still, it was about the start. But yeah, I don't agree that Jed should have been, trying to dive bomb to get those 6 points at the end, because that could have ended up being like a minus 15 points if he'd hit the ground on one of them big swaps that he was having. So I think it's more of a case of that a banged up Webby was still just too good to let Jed go 1-1.
Yep.
Basically, rather than Jed missing the opportunity. But I think, it would have been, he'll be still thinking about, damn, that would have been nice to have those 6 points though. So
yeah, I heard a little bit of criticism about Beaton, that he should have made that move, and that's what the team expects. But I don't think we're there yet. I think if we go into the final rounds and it could go each way, that's when the gloves come off. Like, we've still got 3 rounds to go, and Beaton's got a substantial lead. Like, you would have to think, like, at this stage, the pressure is starting to ease up on Beaton a little bit, and it's almost like for Webster, it's time to hit the big red button.
Yeah. I think he's kind of Webby's kind of been in that position all year, though. I guess too. You know, like he's just had to win the whole year after the first round. You know,
and he did. He won every moto until we got to Traralgon,
and he was doing it. You know.
Yep.
And I guess, so I guess the pressure did swing over maybe a little bit more to Jet for a bit there. But, I think when it's all said and done, I think Jed's in the driver's seat now, isn't he? So.
Yeah. And we're going into some tracks where he's had some success. In terms of the next best guy at Warwick, Nathan Crawford was the next best guy.
The number 3 is clearly the number 3 now.
Yep.
Like, he's the guy. He was all on his own at one stage, like all on his own.
Yeah,
you know, he was gapping everyone else, but being gapped. Like he had a boring race in one of the two. I can't remember which one, but yeah.
Yeah, that would have been Moto 2. So in the first Moto, Webby was back, so the pressure was off Beaton a little bit, I think, and that influenced the gap. I think Beaton just managed that gap. I don't think he was pushing like at 100%, and that, I guess, may have given some of the other riders behind him a little bit of false confidence because, Crawford was saying afterwards that he was happy because that gap wasn't as big. But in the second Moto, when those two guys were pushing each other, it was still 30 seconds between second and third. Those guys are so much better. Yeah. Like, I don't think there is any argument. And if these guys behind are telling themselves that they're on that level, and I hate to say it, I don't want to be that guy. And I'm sure they don't want to hear it. But those guys have got a lot of work to do to get even close to Beaton and Webster when they are riding at 100%.
Question for you, Pete. So this is something I was thinking about today. Pluck a peak 20. What have we got? A peak 23 Dean Ferris and a peak 22 Aaron Tanti, and put them there at Warwick. How does that go?
I think a peak 23 Ferris can run with Beaton and Webster. I don't think a peak 22 Tanti can run with current day Beaton and Webster. I think he would be around the Crawford level, I think.
Because it's incredible what those guys are doing. Like I've said it before. I've said it a lot of times. Those two are riding at that sort of pace where you think that there's no way anybody could ever ride that fast ever.
Yeah,
like that's as fast as a dirt bike will go is what they're doing. That's what they've got that look of, and it's just interesting. Like it's for these other guys. That this sort of 3 to 7 group. Are they sort of the same as they were last year and the year before? And Jed and Kyle are just getting better and better? Or, it's just interesting. These are all things that, you're never going to know the answer if a 23 Dean Ferris could jump in there and do something. But, yeah, it's interesting. I guess what I'm getting at is what these two are doing this year. Is it just the peak that we've ever seen?
I think in Australian motocross, yes.
It's a whole new level. Yeah, I think it's a whole new level.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if I say that peak 23 Ferris can run with, 2025 Jed and Kyle, I doubt that he would be leading the championship. I think those three, it basically wouldn't be the difference. I think maybe Ferris would be the next best guy, but I think he would be closer and mixing it up with those two. On any given day, a lot more than any of the other riders in the current field are. And
that 3 to 7 group's pretty interesting too, Pete, isn't it? Like it's there's a bit going on there.
There's a lot going on there. Yeah, it's
like we've got these two veterans that are. Well, I think is this Gibbsy's last year. I think Todd probably do another 5. Who knows? But like we've got these sort of couple of veterans that are still just
Gibbsy's 36. He's born in 1989.
They're just out there, just still getting it done, and then you've got like Zach Watson coming through, and it's a real mix. You got like Zach Watson, who's probably the youngest of all of them, and then you got like Wilson Todd and NATO, who aren't super young, but they're sort of, I guess, the next up to 450 sort of guys.
Yep.
and then you got the two old guys, and it's an interesting thing. Then Cloudy's kind of somewhere in the middle.
So
yeah, it's an interesting bunch.
I mean, in terms of close racing, like we said at the start, it's what makes awesome for the fans. So let's assume that next year Beaton and Webster go overseas. They get some rides that they have a crack overseas.
Hopefully, they both do get a chance overseas. Yeah. I mean, Jed's obviously been there. Hopefully, he gets another chance. He might, and if he wants to, he might not want to. But I think Kyle should definitely do something next year. But GPs, I'd love to see him in GPs next year. I reckon that would probably be his thing.
What I'm getting at is, hypothetically though, how awesome is this MX1 class going to be? Because apart from those two guys, it's so close amongst like you already said, the 3 to 7 group. Give Zach Watson another year, Levi Rogers another year, Crawford, Willie Todd the opportunity to fully heal up and gel with that 450. Cloudy, Waters is probably still going to throw it in there. Gibbsy, if he's still racing, these are all guys that can mix it up.
I've heard rumors. I don't know. I think Gibbsy might be getting close. I'm not sure exactly, but Toddy's. I see Toddy as like going till he's like 45. Just still
Chad reading it.
He just seems he's Chad Reed. He says, I don't know what. I don't know him personally. That's just the vibe I get.
Yeah,
there's that sort of guy that just would. But and what's exciting with what you're saying there too is who gets the opportunities.
Yep.
Who gets opportunities to move to a better team. That sort of thing. Like, it's some pretty cool stuff going on there. Because especially when you look at MX2 at the moment, pretty young.
Yep.
There's probably not a huge amount of MX2 guys
move up
who are going to be like MX1 next year.
Yep. And certainly be competitive in MX1 next year.
Yeah, I would say, like, if Brody doesn't get an overseas opportunity, because he's another one that we'd love for him to get an opportunity overseas.
Yeah.
And I know Reeves mentioned that, and
I think he will not be in Australia next year.
Yeah, and I've spoken to like some US guys who would know, and like everyone knows Brodie Connolly's name over there,
Yep.
So
and going back to the MX1 class, because I'm not quite ready to move on yet to MX2. I think if Webster, he wants to go overseas, he's looking for that opportunity. And sort of for him, it's the time to do it. Beaton's raced in Europe, but I think at the level that Beaton is riding at right now, he is a world-class rider. I think he's, like, I hate to say it because I'd love for these guys to race in Australia because it definitely elevates the sport here. And I'd love for, good overseas riders to come over here and race. But I think the reality is that in the current field, all things being equal and nothing changing dramatically, I think Beaton and Webster are too good to stay in Australia. It would be wasted potential at the moment if they were to stay in Australia, all other things staying the same.
Yeah, I guess. And like I said, I particularly think that of Kyle, like, because Jed, like maybe Europe and all that's something he's sort of done. Maybe he might be a guy that's happy in Australia now.
Yeah. But he would have the way that these guys are racing and the speed that they can go, like maybe Webster leaving and these guys, not having each other to push each other changes the dynamic. But
it would do. Yeah.
How would Beaton not win every single moto next year easily if it's just a case of removing Webster from the equation?
It's true, they've got a bit of a Stu and Chad thing going on.
Yeah,
where it's it's like no slight on everyone else. They're all badasses that are sort of that 3rd to 8 group, but just these two guys at the moment. And you can see, NATO. He's saying it.
Yeah, and I'm a massive NATO fan.
In his interviews, he's said it. He's frustrated, and he's not no racer ever admits, I can't beat him ever. That you always got to believe you can. But he's admitted he's so frustrated that this gap he can't close. So it's we're not saying anything that's not obvious.
Yeah, I'm a massive NATO fan, but like the reality is at the level that these guys are racing, I think that 2 seconds a lap or 1.5 seconds a lap that he has to make up on average. That's a lot. Like that is a lot. That is not a case of not quite being comfortable on the bike or just being a little bit fitter. Like that is a massive, massive amount when you're talking about making up 1.5 seconds every single lap to bridge that gap. It's huge. So
yeah, you got to you know, I'm not knowledgeable enough about each trainers in Australia, but there certainly seems to be a lot of Ross Beaton guys doing really well, you know. So, you know, is that it makes me wonder sometimes is that Ross is lucky enough to have the best riders at the moment, or is he doing something different, you know? That's an interesting take that, like I said, I'm not knowledgeable enough to really give a informed opinion or discussion on that, but I would, I guess it's something I'd like to know more about, though, for sure. I don't know how far you're across it, Pete, but I know you see the Beatons guys train a lot because you live in the neighbourhood, but you don't see, you know, the other guys, you know, train. So,
I mean, I think there's a couple of different factors there. One, the argument you're sort of putting forward, it's a bit of a chicken and egg thing. Like,
yeah,
do the best riders come out of the Beatons program, or do the best riders go into the Beatons program?
Yeah,
Because of what he delivers. So that's sort of I guess a quite a subjective discussion, and certainly something that can be debated. I think one thing that Ross brings to the table that I'm hearing more and more, and I certainly heard a lot of over the weekend, is that outside of the racing and the riding, he actually helps a lot of these younger riders away from the track. I can't remember who it was. It may have been one of the Kingsford boys, but even said that he's like another dad when his dad's not there. And I think he teaches these guys a lot about the mental side of things, about that winning mentality. Just like there's a lot of personal growth that's happening in and around that program for these guys away from the track.
Yeah.
And I think that is certainly an element that pays dividends when you're talking about, for these younger riders that are up and coming, you know, you guys like Cade Kingsford and Ryder Kingsford and Brodie Connolly, that definitely has contributed to their success.
That's interesting, yeah.
So,
cool.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the fastest riders in every class, barring Kyle Woods, are all on the Beatons program. You know, usually the two fastest guys in every class. So whatever the reason, like that's a fact.
What you got to do, Pete, is you got to get Ross and Nathan Crawford and Ford Dale all on a podcast and ask them all the hard hitting questions, Pete. That's what you got to do. Get all these answers for us.
Yeah. Moving forward, one thing I wanted to talk about in this class, so the gate numbers were small. We definitely had a lot less riders than we've seen at the earliest rounds of the series. Yeah. Duffy and Purvis are out. You know, they're two big names. But beyond that, I think there was quite a few of the southern-based privateers that didn't come up. I think we had 24 on the gate at the end of the day. But notwithstanding, there was some absolutely outstanding rides from some privateer guys in the MX1 class at Warwick. So I wanted to recognise that. So I think this is sort of a theme in my notes through this whole round, is just how well some of these privateers did. And I feel like that there was a lot of standout rides and breakout rides at Warwick, which was really, really cool, because I love seeing these privateers do well, as you do as well. So Zach Watson, 5th overall, 4.6 moto scores. I'm going to claim credit for this, Steve, because I said it on one of our podcasts that you know, Levi Rogers was the guy, and I think since then Zach has elevated his game, and I'm saying he must have been listening.
Too, if Zach can figure out better starts, or not even better starts, if he can figure out better first laps, look out, because he especially late, the way he, you know, starts picking off these really good guys late,
factory guys.
He's picking off factory guys late in the moto. Yeah,
and he's starting to do it more consistently. Like, this is becoming a regular thing.
Yeah, he's a top 5 guy now.
Yep.
He is. He's a top 5 guy now, and I think he gets that. But yeah, we need a when he comes, because I'm just trying to think which race it was. But there's one race where off the line and that he wasn't too bad, but then he saw just that execution in them first couple of corners and that sort of thing. He
Drop
just
back a little bit.
And,
Yep.
But yeah, I think if he can get where he's, coming around for the green flag, man, and he's like third, then look out. Yeah, he'll just stay there. So yeah,
I agree. 10th place, Cody Alone, top 10. Awesome effort for him. He's supported by Caloundra Motorcycles, but again, it's a privateer effort. Now, Cody's on the Mental4Moto program, and chatting with Cody, this is his year. Like, he's put all in. He's instead of racing around work, he's working around racing. So he's taken this year, as seriously as a privateer can. Obviously, you still have to pay the bills and juggle all the other responsibilities, but I think the effort that he's putting in is starting to pay off, and he was riding so good on the weekend. He had some battles with Chandler Burns, some battles with Bryce Ognenis, Liam Jackson, Connor Rosendich, but at the end he sort of ended up on top of all those guys. So awesome ride for Cody.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And then even like you look down the list, like Bryce Ognenis. I think, am I saying that right? Ognenis?
That's it. Yep, Bryce Ognenis.
Yeah, man. Like,
so Bryce
almost a top 10.
Yep. Oh, Bryce. Sorry, go.
He's the Vic champion. Yeah, Vic.
He's 2 points down with 1 round to go in the Vic Championship this year.
Who's got him this year?
Jacob Sweet.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So just coming off the last round at Horsham, Bryce went down in 2 motos. He had a huge off in the second moto. Like, it was a full catapult.
Oh, shit.
Got back on and rode back to second place. And then in the last race, he went down in the first corner, got up 300 metres behind the last rider and fought back to second. Coming off a top 10 at Traralgon, which is where I know he sees himself, where he should be in the ProMX. I think backing it up now at Warwick with an 11th place and 11-11 moto scores, I think he's sort of really gelling with that WBR bulk nutrients bike, and he's got a newfound sense of confidence. I think we're going to see him in and around that top 10 every round now.
That's it. And hey, you just reminded me, talking about Horsham. It would have been cool to see Corey Watts out there this weekend, wouldn't it? Where was he? There was room on the gate.
Yeah.
He came out of retirement at Horsham, and he's living in Queensland, I believe. So.
Yep, he's done three rides in 19 months and ran second in MX1 at Horsham. So
Horsham just warming up for Toowoomba and
I know we sort of joked about that. I know there is, I guess, maybe the thought of doing a moto. Kenny listens to these podcasts, so I'm sure he'll confirm with me.
We're putting it out there. We're putting the pressure on. Causa.
I was hitting him up to do the Supercross, and he's thinking about that too. So hopefully we see Corey out there, because I think he adds a lot to.
Well, he's been keeping fit playing footy. That might not help with arm pump, but his cardio will be up because he's been playing footy up there. So
yeah, I know that after Horsham, like, he went 2-2 and then had a tip over in the last one. He was a bit banged up, and I know he was definitely feeling it. I chatted to him after the races. He was definitely feeling it.
Nothing replaces riding, hey? So,
no, for sure.
Especially on the arms, man.
Yeah. And the last rider I just wanted to shout out to in the MX1 class was Liam Jackson. 10-12 moto scores for 12th overall. I think he was that would have put him on, the same points as Bryce Ognenis. Actually, it was Cody Alone, Bryce Ognenis, and Liam Jackson all had the same points. Yeah, that was a 3-way tie with Cody and Bryce getting the nod on the count back. So Liam Jackson got the raw deal there. But as I said, there was battles all the way through the field, which was awesome, and the points sort of reflect that too, which is really cool. These guys all want that top 10, and they're all fighting for it.
That's it. And shout out to I'm just trying to find his name. Shout out to the local dude on the 2-stroke who was running.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
No stickers, 2-stroke. Obviously a local guy, but coming out there and having a crack. Love to see it.
All right, we better keep this show moving along. So
We better.
Before we just get on to MX2, Canberra, Webster or Beaton? Who you got?
Beaten.
He's on a roll?
Yeah, not so much the roll, just the injury concern.
Yep.
Is the main reason. Like those two guys, I don't think it matters where or when. Now it's toss a coin who wins, and I think if one of them's banged up, you just got to say the other. That's pretty much it. But if Webby came out there and won, wouldn't surprise me in the slightest.
I'm going to say Webby goes 1-1 at Canberra.
There you go. All right.
Yep. He seems to ride well when he's got his back to the wall.
Yep.
And I mean, this round, notwithstanding, he was pretty beaten up, but I reckon he's going to heal up. He's pretty good at all the recovery stuff. He's obviously super disciplined with diet and fitness and I think he'll come into Canberra as good as he possibly can be.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to be riding there with something to prove because he has to. Like I said, it's panic stations for Webster. I think if Beaton ties him for points at Canberra or gets more points on Webster, you could almost rule out the chance of him winning the championship.
Yeah.
Because after that, Beaton would just have to go second and he'd still win.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think Canberra is going to be the last chance for Webster to get a wedge in to make a run at this title.
Nah, like I said, toss the coin. But yeah, I'm just going to pick Jed.
Yep.
For Canberra, yeah.
MX2, Alex Larwood for the win. Oh, did you call that?
Love it. I didn't call it. No, I didn't call it. But I love it. Yeah, I'm a fan. Always liked him, and I've always rated him real high too. So it was cool, man. Yeah,
yep.
It was cool. Obviously, okay, Brody got cleaned up in the first corner and so on, but you win. So win's a win. So
totally. I mean, 2-1, you can't take that away from him.
Yeah. It was cool, man.
Connolly second overall, 1-4-moto scores. Like you said, he went down off the start. Valiant sort of fight back. Was really pushing it, got a bit loose at times on a track that was definitely biting a few riders. So, I think for him that's not a bad outcome. He's still got a big lead in the championship. He's got 17 points still over Ryder Kingsford after 1-4. If that's a bad day for Connolly, I think he can kind of afford it. There's no one that's really putting the pressure on him. It's a very different situation to the Beaton Webster situation, I think, between Connolly and Kingsford. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, and I mean, and the key thing for Brody is that he still put points on Kingsford.
Yep. So
yeah, the guy that's got some soul searching to do is Ryder Kingsford. Yeah, that I don't know. I haven't heard any interviews or anything, but he's got to be spewing, man. Like
5-3 moto scores. Yeah, I don't know what happened.
That's a very different to like he's been clearly a top 2 guy all year.
Yep.
And this was an opportunity, especially if he was doing his usual thing. Imagine if he wins Moto 2, for instance.
But I'm going to throw it out there because it's kind of for me a bit of a case of putting our money where our mouth is. At the end of the day, we've always talked, and everyone always talks about Larwood's talent.
Yeah,
we know Noah Ferguson's speed, and he just hasn't been able to put it together. So, I mean, really, we shouldn't be surprised that Larwood took the win. Yes, he got a bit of a gift in Connolly going down. And Fergo, talking on the podium, he's found something. Yeah. And as he said, expect this from now on. That they were his words, to that effect.
Which is awesome. I love it.
Yeah, I agree. But really, at the end of the day, maybe, fifth place for Kingsford. I'm sure he's not stoked with that. But was it Kingsford having a bad day, or these guys actually just riding maybe where they should be?
Yeah, good point. Maybe Kingsford was just a slight bit off, but maybe maybe Alex and Fergo just hit their straps, man. Maybe there might be something in that.
And where this is going to go now is going to be really cool to watch, because Connolly's got a big lead, like I said, over Ryder Kingsford. Kingsford's got a big lead over Fergo in third, but there's only 3 points now separating Fergo and Larwood for third place in the championship. So that's going to be a battle, I think, to watch moving forward.
Absolutely. It's cool, and they're two of my favourites that'll be battling out for third there. So
yeah, very different riding styles too.
Very different people and riding styles and everything, man. But yeah, I don't know. They're just two that I've always liked. I like Fergo for his, for his riding style, and he's a bit of a weapon, and then Alex is just a bit, just a likable kid as well. So it's cool, man. Cool to see them be both battling for a podium, and yeah.
Fergo did a podcast on MX Vice with Ed Stratton. Would have been 3 years ago. Yeah, it must have been 2023, and it's still got to be one of my favourite all-time podcast interviews.
Yeah, I do remember it, and I think that's probably. I remember Fergo on a podcast a while back. That's probably the one, and I think that's what made me a Fergo fan.
Yep. Yeah, he's got a lot more knowledge than you, and he's much more of a student and a fan of the sport than I had ever anticipated.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
All right, in this class, I had a list of privateers as well that I thought were, really, really, they caught my eye out on the track.
Yep.
Kobe Burke, the 714, New Zealander. I thought he finished 8th overall. Really, really solid ride, but looked great. Definitely passed the eye test. And another New Zealander, 9th overall, Maddock Dixon. He's been training with the Beatons guys. He's been super fast out there at times as well. And he's always he'll go out there without numbers, or he'll run a different number. And when he's training, just on his practice bike plastics and on his gear, and sometimes it's like, who's that guy out there? But he's the current New Zealand MX2 champion, and man, he's starting to put it together, I think.
Yeah. I don't know much about Maddock. I did have I had a little chat to Kobe Burke's dad. Yep. On the weekend. Kobe wasn't there at the time, but I was having a chat to his dad. Yeah, he's been doing really well. I think he was second in the New Zealand Championship. Yeah, I think Kobe was second.
Yep.
To Maddock. Yeah. Yep. So they're both doing well, and there's a bit. So what's that? Three Kiwis in the top
10.
In the top 10, and a someone from Japan as well. So there you go. Multicultural.
That's it. Haruki, what a dude. Love that guy.
I love that guy too. Yeah. He is a good dude.
Yeah. Sam Larson, 12th overall. I think, he's been doing well over in Thailand, but very, very different tracks. And he's really struggled this season coming back and racing ProMX. And then obviously, the Joel Evans incident, those two being best mates. I think, he's had a very rough year. But I spoke to him. He was a lot more positive, and he's been putting the work in, and I think 12th overall, great result for him. And, it's awesome to see him with a smile on his face as well, and seem to be enjoying the riding. So, for me, I loved seeing that for Sam.
Yeah. Couple to mention. Yeah. Jack Kukas, he had a big one. I didn't see it, but I saw his bike after Moto 1. He had did he have a big one in Moto 1?
I didn't see it, to be honest.
Yeah, just looking at the scores, unless I was thinking of a number, there was an MX2 Husqvarna that was all kind of bent up, and he's out of the points for Moto 1. So yeah, that's all right. One we'll both have to look for when when we watch the replay then.
Yep.
And then Caleb Barham, couple of cracking starts, man.
Yep.
I got some good pics of the MX2 starts, and him and Fergo toe to toe in both of them. So,
How good was it? Yep.
Yeah, really good starts, but then Caleb had bike issues.
Disaster weekend for him, man. The way he was riding at the front.
Yeah.
But his bike issues started in practice. So I think they got one lap in on practice and he came straight into the pit. And then I'm assuming it was his dad. Is his dad his mechanic?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, came riding down towards the pits with no helmet on and on the practice bike or the spare bike. And, Hancock nearly lost his mind. So, but, they were pretty urgently trying to get him back out there. And his day just didn't get any better, unfortunately.
Yeah.
The riding isn't reflected in the results, but he was riding unbelievably well.
He was, yeah.
Yep, and
he doesn't ride Warwick heaps, even though he's only an hour and a half away.
Yep.
Yeah, I was talking to him about that. He doesn't actually ride it that much. But Moto 1, he did have a tip over in that, but the bike was coughing and spluttering and stuff, so he pulled the pin, because obvious reasons that you don't want that on that big up ramp.
So, that one up ramp. Yep.
Yeah. And then then Moto 2, there was I think they had the bike sorted, but there was crashes. But those starts, man, damn, like he actually had Moto 1, he had sort of half a wheel on Fergo halfway down the straight. He got closed out, but both good starts. So that was
really, really good ride. So moving ahead to Canberra, does Kingsford bounce back?
Probably this is the hard class to pick for Canberra. And isn't that saying something? When, a few rounds ago we were like, Connolly just going to smash everyone all the time, we were saying that after round one, but
I'm going to quantify that. I think Connolly is the favourite by far, by
he's the
a country mile.
But there's you see mistakes and you see the big points lead, and he doesn't have to win and that sort of thing. I'd still just pick him. But I don't know. It'll be pretty good test for Ryder Kingsford, I suppose. It's a pretty good test of what he's got, I guess, isn't it?
Yep.
Where it goes from here is this. It might show a bit of insight into what he's got, man.
Yeah. Like how much he's willing to dig and whether he's got that dog in him.
Dig.
Yep. How big's the dog? Yeah.
That is it. Yeah. And then obviously it'll be cool to also see Fergo and Larwood to hopefully continue on their good form. So
like I said, Fergo made a big statement that I think his words were to the effect of, "This is what you can expect from me moving forward." So, I mean, he's put the pressure on himself a little bit there, but if that's what he produces moving forward, it's going to be unreal to see. Yeah. I'm actually surprised, like what you said. We said that Connolly was sort of going to run away with this, but what I feel like Connolly certainly hasn't made it easy on himself with lots of little mishaps that have made this points gap a lot closer than it probably could have been. But I feel that Kingsford, Fergo, and Larwood especially have all elevated since the start of the season.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's right. Because at the start of the season, we were talking about Connolly winning every race.
Yep. Yeah,
and we weren't even that, and we weren't talking about it like it would be that surprising.
Yep.
And we're not talking like that anymore.
No, definitely. That's a good point. All right, MX3. Now, a massive drop-off in the number of riders on the gate from, 2 qualifying groups and sort of 70-plus riders. Yeah. We're down to 43 on the day. They can squeeze into 1 qualifying group and obviously only 40 line up on the gate, but 1 qualifying group. Good opportunity for riders that have struggled to qualify at some of the other rounds. Cade Kingsford, though, no struggles for him.
Too good.
Yep, fastest in qualifying, 1-1 in the races. He's done it again. So this is the second or third time he's pulled that off this season. He's starting to cement himself, whereas some of the other classes, like we were just saying in MX2, the other riders are elevating. In this class, it's Cade that's elevating himself above everyone else.
Yeah, he's, and yes, Kai was crook. He was sick. So there's that. But I just kind of think that even so, Cade, I think Cade would have won no matter who was out there with him.
Yep.
At Warwick, and I think he's really kind of stamped himself as the guy of the MX3 class, and it's quite unusual to have that in the MX3 class too, isn't it?
It is. Yep, it is, and
we've never had
consistent.
that. I don't think MX3 is this like year 4, 5 of it. I don't think we've ever had it where at round 5 we got this guy's the man.
Not since maybe not since Caden Manier, but even that wasn't a dominant year.
Even Caden wasn't dominant.
Yeah,
Caden
as a 14-year-old,
Caden had some dominant weekends, but he mixed that with just consistent results.
Yeah.
And he had some dominant weekends in some sandier tracks and that sort of thing, But, even then,
So I've got a tough question for you then, Steve. With Cade's dominance, Kingsford's dominance in this class, is that because Cade Kingsford is like a level above these other guys in terms of he's a bit of a phenom in MX3, or is it just because the depth of the field behind him isn't there to push him? So is he better than average, for someone that's winning an MX3 championship, or is the rest of the field not as good?
I think maybe he's better than average. Yeah.
So this is something we could expect, when he steps up eventually to MX2, that he's going to be a bit of a force to be reckoned.
I think so, yeah, because I'm just looking at who he's dealing with out there, and he's dealing with some pretty good kids out there. There's no slouches in the 5 or 6 guys behind him, that's for sure. So I think he's really good. I think he's he's really clicked with the Honda team. That's quite a change.
Yep.
Quite different bikes. The Yamaha and the Honda, and and riders seem to like one or the other, don't they?
They do. Yep.
They seem to like one or the other. Like Jed Beaton on a Yamaha is way different to Jed Beaton on the Honda. They're both good, but he really clicked on the Yamaha.
And I dare say, from what I've heard from a lot of the riders about the 2025 Honda, it's a good thing for Jed he's not riding the 2025 Honda. So
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even Jet and Hunter are still mucking around with the 25 Honda, aren't they? So
yeah.
With the 450 anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. Not many riders loving the 450, and I think Kyle is an exception to the rule. And from what I understand, Kyle's bike is very, very different to and the stuff that they've done and the testing they've put in and the amount of different things that they've tried is sort of out of reach for probably just about anyone else riding the 2025 Honda in Australia. But
Cade's certainly loving that 250 though, hey? So
yep.
And he was good on the WBR bike last year too, but this is
standout.
Way very much a standout to how he looked up last year. So
another podium for Jed Alsop, but he wasn't happy with third. He wasn't happy with his riding. Believes he should be up battling with these guys a lot more. Interesting.
And like I said at the start of the show, I interviewed him in that, and he sort of echoed that he wasn't happy with his starts, and that's what he wants to work on. And a bit like what I said with about Zach Watson, it's not so much his jump and his start wasn't that bad. It's more that first few turns, first lap execution is probably more than just the actual gate drop from what I could see.
Yep.
And even just looking at the photos, he's not like he's buried off the start, but then just not in a good spot after sort of that, especially at that track. The difference, the way that first 2 turns was super key to the start of the race. Not just the gate drop, the way that people got through that, the left right.
Yep.
And got going. That was a real key part of the race. So,
Speaking of starts, the first rider to get to the first corner in the first moto, and I believe in the second moto, was actually Richie Lawler. He just didn't execute the turn ahead of everyone, but he was the first one there. So
what number is he? Because
number 27 on the KTM.
I had one of the MX3 motos. I had a good pick of the start. And I'm trying to figure out who's the kid on the inside. So that's who you're talking about, yeah?
Yeah, he was on the outside, but he ran.
Oh, he was on the outside.
Yeah,
okay.
ran it in deep. And, but I got shots of, because I was shooting for him. He ran it in deep, but he was in front of everyone by probably 2 or 3 bike lengths. So everyone starts turning and he's still going in a straight line. So it's his first year in MX3. Phenomenal supercross rider and obviously a phenomenal motocross rider, but he's still sort of finding his way in this MX3 class. And I think, next year he's going to be mixing it up with a lot of these front runners. But man, if he can get the jump like that and execute that turn, some of these guys might be in second place for the whole shot, I think.
He's got the starts down.
Oh, he's got the jump down. Yeah, for sure.
That's the way. Good stuff.
Yeah. Some privateers in this class. Seth Shackleton, I think it's the 3rd round in a row now. 4th overall, riding unreal.
Yep. Yeah, he was, man. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, no, he's just sort of slowly getting a little better each round.
Yep.
I'd say. Yeah, is that fair enough to say? I think, yeah.
I would say the last 3 rounds he's been consistently sort of just off the podium in terms of that guy,
Yeah. Has he snuck a podium this year yet?
Seth Shacks. Oh, now you're asking some hard questions.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. I think it's been Cade, Kai and Jet.
But yeah, Seth is he's the next one due, that's for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. But I guess too, maybe was the last few tracks his best opportunities.
Being sandy-ish,
being a
rough,
or am I putting too much into the old WA boys love sand argument?
This was one of the lively debates I had with Michael Burns on the trip over. So that this is a thing. It's about rough tracks, not sand tracks. With the WA guys especially.
Okay, yeah.
I think, look, Seth Shackleton, Australian junior champion, he's got the skills, and in such a deep field of animals in MX3, I think he's just finding his feet now, and I think that's the skill set was always there, the ability to do well was always there, but for that sort of cream to rise to the top in such a deep field is always hard. I mean, even if you look down the field here, there is just so many names here of guys that on any given day can be, well towards the pointy end of the top 10. Yep. So, I think for him, it's just about finding his feet.
Yeah.
Sonny Pellicano in 5th.
Yeah. He was under the rig, under that WBR had him under the rig for the weekend. And his same rig,
Yep.
His same bike and everything. But yeah, he was under the tent there. And
speaking of guys who
getting a little bit of love.
Speaking of guys who have improved every round,
yeah,
Pellicano 7 points in the first round, 8 points in round 2, 14 points in round 3, 26 in round 4, and 31 in round 5. So
there you go.
Big improvements.
Yep.
Every round.
Yep,
So because I was like, where the hell has this guy come from? It's it just sort of seemed to come out of nowhere, but it's been a steady climb to the top. Max Compton putting it together. I think he got 6-8 moto scores for 6 overall. Awesome ride for Max. I think he's pretty hungry to double that up and get out there and do that again at the next round. And he's a New South Wales boy, so definitely much closer to a sort of a home race for him going to Canberra as well. So I'm sure he's probably raced out there before.
Yep. Yeah. I'm looking forward to Canberra to see what it's like.
Yep.
Not looking forward to the weather.
It's going to be cold.
Yeah, man, it's going to be cold as shit.
Oh, mate. Down here in Melbourne, It is
Yeah.
it is cold and rainy at the moment. We've got another 20 mil rain forecast tomorrow,
Yeah.
but it's freezing and I'm hating life. Give me daylight
Yeah, yeah.
savings. Give me 35 degrees.
Same.
Oh, yeah, not loving it at all.
Yeah, no, you'll very rarely hear me complain about heat. It's got to be like 45 before I'm complaining about the heat.
You and me both, buddy. You and me both.
But yeah, I don't like being too cold, man.
Deegan Rose, 8th at Warwick. That's after not qualifying at Gilman, scoring 4 points at Traralgon, and now he scored 27 points at Warwick. So that is a breakout ride for Deegan Rose. He's part of the Rising Motorsports Triumph privateer team. So awesome result for him. He's had a rough comeback to racing over the last 3 rounds, but finally, he's I guess where he wants to be.
Yep. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yep, and one of the only riders to be throwing it sideways over that tabletop. So,
oh, righto, yeah.
Yep. No,
Yeah.
I was loving that. So, only guy out there showing a bit of personality and a bit of style. So,
NATO was giving it a bit in practice.
Yep.
That's the only one that I can remember that was getting a bit of style going for the crowd in practice. But yeah,
just to digress a little bit. Could you see the wall jump with the 3 rollers on it from the spectator area?
nah.
So it was if you were sort of standing at the main spectator area, it was down the left-hand back of the track. And so there's a wall jump with 3 rollers, and Jed Beaton was pretty much, I think, the only one. Maybe a couple of the other guys tried it out. Occasionally he was tripling off that, and it was massive, like absolutely massive. If that had been near a spectator area, that would have had the crowd going certainly wild by Australian standards.
Yeah.
It was freaking unreal to watch. Like he was just fully sending it off this thing. I've got it on, got some video of it, and it was huge. So I think Webster tried it once. Beaton did it probably at least half a dozen times, but it was a big jump. It was impressive.
Nice. Hopefully they got some good footage on the replay of that.
Yeah, I'm sure it'd be on the TV, but check it out. It was so cool to see, and when you're standing down next to the jump and these guys are sort of hitting it all at the same speed, and then someone just hits it flat out and sends it. It's just such a buzz, man. I dig that. That'll never get old.
Yeah. Absolutely, man.
Yep. Disaster weekend for Caden Strode. Now, I was in their pits for most of the weekend in the Ride Red pits, and he was under the weather. He was under the weather coming into it, like really badly flued up. So I think for him it was a bit of a weekend to forget, and for Balin Townsend as well. I think he hit the ground a couple of times. So coming off some good rounds at Traralgon, those boys had a less than ideal weekend at Warwick.
I remember, Strody was the star at Traralgon, wasn't he? So
yeah, a couple of hole shots, and
so he'll be disappointed after Warwick.
Yeah, but he was feeling rough even before he hit the track, so it just wasn't his weekend. As far as the championship goes, Kingsford's now got a pretty commanding lead, 37 points.
Yeah, yep.
Jet
37 points, and he's probably going to still keep winning.
Yep.
So
Jet Allsop 8 points behind Kai Woods. Can Jet catch Kai?
He can, yeah. It'll be hard. I think where Kai's at is probably he wants to probably prove a point. I think that's where he probably got a bit of a chip. Like I got to prove a point. I should be in this more, and he's probably real hungry for wins. I don't think he's going to be sort of settling at all.
Yep.
But for Jet, that's a real carrot. That's a real carrot to chase, isn't it?
Well, I think Kai's got the speed, the 1 lap sort of speed, but Jet's been consistent. And Kai has had those motos where, he could win or he could come 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th.
Yeah.
So
I reckon that Jet has probably got most of these guys covered. I'd say he's probably got them all covered late race. Very good late race. Like he comes on, like if he could get that first lap, those first couple of laps down, then we could see something pretty special out of him, I think.
And you'll see in the video that I sent you too, he had a great battle with Seth Shackleton in Moto.
Yeah.
I think it was Moto 2. And mate, he put a pretty aggressive pass on him as well.
Yeah, they did have a good battle. Yeah, I do remember. I remember watching that, and I have seen the video you sent too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So 6th to 13th place in the MX3 class, separated by 10 points.
It's crazy, isn't it?
It's very crazy. So while there is some sort of standouts in this class that have, made a breakout at the pointy end,
yeah,
there is a lot of guys vying for the minor places here, and I guess every one of them wants to be in the top 10. So
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be cool to see how that sort of plays out at the end of the season, and who can end up there.
Yeah, and it bodes well for next year too, eh?
It does, because a few of these guys are going to step up, and then we'll find some new talent sort of trying to make a name for themselves. So, and I'm sure it's going to be those guys that are sort of in that 6 to 13 grouping that are going to be hanging around for another year and have at least another year in MX3. Won't go too deep in it. 85cc, Seth Thomas, he wins at Warwick. Now, did you see his off-track excursion? There's a few videos of this going around.
No.
So in his battle with Blake Bohannon, he goes off the track. It was down in that section you were talking about earlier, down the bottom right-hand side. Before they come down, they sort of go off like an anthill. And before the anthill, he goes off track, goes around the anthill, and he pins it off the track. Like absolutely pins it. And comes back on next to Blake Bohannon. So he didn't pass him in the exercise. Definitely doesn't lose, 100% doesn't lose ground, arguably made it up. No penalty.
Really?
No penalty. Now, Blake Bohannon won the championship, finished second at Warwick, wins the championship. If that had been impacted, I 100% think they would have obviously protested. But he won by 10 points. That was kind of care of a Seth Thomas DNF at Appen. Otherwise, Seth would have won the championship if it wasn't for that. But I don't know, that it's just interesting in the light of the Brodie Connolly incident and a few other things. There was definitely, I can 100% pinpoint probably at least 3 or 4 other notable occasions where riders have had off-track excursions and accelerated and not been penalised. Then you've got the Brodie Connolly one, which is, in my mind, a lot more questionable, where he was penalised. I don't know. I'm not sort of here or there as to each individual case, whether or not, a rider needs to be penalised. But whatever happens, it needs to be consistent.
Yeah, consistency is the key.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, at least it didn't impact the championship, I guess.
Maybe that'll still come. I think I did hear on the weekend that they're no longer doing in-race penalties. I think because of the need to investigate and I guess maybe get a second opinion. I don't know. I don't know what the rationale behind that is, but I did hear that they're no longer doing in-race penalties. So,
Seth has a big lead over third in the championship, so it wouldn't matter.
But
they might do it. Might do it, but it wouldn't matter points wise. I mean, it would matter to right or wrong or whatever, but it wouldn't matter points wise or position wise.
Yeah. But as far as the application of the rules go, I think it needs to happen. Or they've got to start overlooking some of the other cases where they have penalised riders. I think it just needs to be consistent, whichever way they go, and I don't really care, but it needs to be consistent.
Yeah. And then well done to Blake Bohannon, though. He's young, yeah. This is the kid that's
won 65s last year.
In 85s.
Yep. Yeah, he won the 65 ProMX championship last year. So at the ProMX level, this is his first year in the 85s. And, comes away with the win. So another superstar of the future, I think.
That's, one to watch, I think. That's pretty impressive, man. Just step off, up to the next class and win, and even though so Seth had a breakdown and that sort of thing, but still, Bohannon battled with him a bit and was, clearly, right behind him a lot of these races. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. And
In the end, yeah.
it's pretty much the first, I think, championship that Seth hasn't won in the last couple of years. So,
Yeah.
awesome effort for Blake Bohannon to get up and take that out.
And I'm guessing that Blake's probably a couple of years younger than Seth,
I think Seth is actually still pretty young.
Is he?
Yeah, I
Okay,
think last year he got an exemption to actually enter the big wheel class a little bit early because
they're both pretty young then.
Yeah, when his birthday was.
Because I do remember when Seth and little mate who's over in the States now were battling, there was a big size difference, like who's the little guy who's training over at Club MX? Oh, I've interviewed him before. He was battling Seth there last year.
Oh, yeah.
Jack Nunn.
Jack Nunn.
Yeah, Jack Nunn, who was, and he's like a foot taller than Seth last year, but they were battling. And
yep.
Yeah, so Seth, he's quite small. Yeah, quite a bit younger. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think these guys will be going. These guys will get the opportunity to go again at it next year. So and then maybe young Mason Ezagalis will be up on the big wheel next year.
Look out when that happens too, eh?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but he's a little bit younger than these guys, I think. So he's a year or two younger. So
it is interesting. Interesting to watch these kids come through too. Because often these kids aren't the ones we're talking about when it comes to big bikes.
100%.
It's a funny thing, isn't it? Yeah,
it is. And I really feel like at this age, these kids shouldn't be feeling the pressure.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be any pressure on them. Like, these kids should have no sense of how much it costs to go racing and, the stress that might put on the parents. And, like, in order to be successful, I almost feel like they need to be shielded from that because when they line up, they can't be thinking about that sort of stuff. And they're still kids, ultimately. And I feel like one of the reasons that, like you said, we're not talking about these guys sometimes when it gets
to MX3.
Yep, it's because they burn out.
Not talking about them anymore. Yeah.
They burn out.
Oh, there's also the one which I'm a firm believer in, and I mean history backs it up. In a lot of cases, that kids like young Seth who just wins, whole shots wins, and that sort of thing. And then eventually they get into a class or a field where they can't do that.
Yep.
And it's a real mental struggle.
Yes.
And it's also a skill set struggle with racecraft. And okay, I can't get the start against these guys yet. I've got to work my way through from a bad start, and I'm rubbing shoulders in the first corner with guys that are bigger and better than me and that sort of thing. And sometimes they struggle with that, whereas the kid that was fifth in the 85s and got shit starts on a slower bike and had to fight like shit to get through the field and that sort of thing, and is hungry and got a chip on their shoulder and that sort of thing, they sometimes are the ones that end up being the man in MX3, for instance. So
you have to have a look at it, like, for these guys that step up from 85s. So Richie Lawler is a good example. He was on 85 big wheel last year. They weren't necessarily going to race MX3 this year, but he was really good off the bat on the 250. So they've done that, and I think he's got some valuable experience. But notwithstanding, you've got these kids that are 14 years old, doing their first year sometimes on a 250, racing MX3, going against 18-year-old kids that might have 3 or 4 years under their belts. Physically, they've grown, they've gone through puberty. For a kid on an 85 that is winning, state-level races, potentially 85 ProMX, like, that's got to be like getting kicked in the nuts to then all of a sudden be lining up against these young men.
Yeah.
It's I think if you can get through that and succeed without PTSD by the time you're 18, you're doing all right.
Yeah.
It's but it is a big, very, very steep learning curve, that MX3 class. And I think, like you said, even for the best guys at the junior levels on the 85, they're going to have some adversity when they step up to the 250s. You know, they're gonna have to be resilient. They're gonna have to be tough. And I think the other factor is when they get to the 250 class in MX3. So at 85s, talent will get you a very, very long way. But you look at this MX3 class, they're all talented, and on top of that, they're now putting in the work. You know, they've got training camps. A lot of them aren't going to school. Like most of the top guys aren't going to school. They're doing online learning. They're doing home school, and they're training flat out physically. So, like you said, you know, if for these guys that have relied on talent, which they all do at a younger age for the most part, they've got to be willing to put that work in when they get to that MX3 level if they're going to be successful.
And also then too, like that, sometimes, you know, when they're on that 85 age, you know, mum and dad can be the ones providing a lot of motivation.
Yep.
You know, like, you know, mum and dad are motivating them to get off their ass and do it. But when you're getting it towards the big bikes, it is it becomes more about them having to be, you know, self-motivated. And you get a lot of drop off there too, you know.
Totally agree.
Not everyone wants to do that.
Yep. Yeah.
And
you know, at that age,
percentage of people that really want to do that. So
at that age, they're also susceptible to a few other distractions as well. You know, I think that there's obviously the appeal of the opposite sex that starts.
That's at the age where you start to find new toys.
Yep.
And your dirt bike's not as fun as them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mates are all going out and partying and you know, drinking and plenty of other, I guess,
extracurricular activities.
Well, lures away from motocross.
That's it.
So
that's it. Yeah.
You know, but the kids that stick with it, they've got something going on in the brain that is driving them to succeed. So it's really cool. Yep. You know, I love that part of it. It separates, like we sort of said, it separates the men from the boys by the time they're getting to that older MX3 class age and then into MX2.
What's our fourth class at Canberra?
65s.
That's the 65s, and then the girls are the last two rounds. Yeah,
girls are last two rounds, and the 65s will have their last round at QMP as well. So we've got 5 classes at QMP over 2 days.
Yeah, better get them 65s jetted for the cold weather. How's that gonna go?
Yeah. Anti-frost. Yep.
That's it. Yeah.
All right. I am not looking forward to that. I hopefully am getting my van back, so might be in the van. We'll see what happens. Maybe I'll soft out and get a motel room. I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, I'll be swagging it on the island, Pete. I'll just be have some extra layers and an extra blanket and stuff. I'll be right. Yeah. I have to chip the ice off the top of the swag in the morning.
Oh, I had to do that on the way up to Warwick. We stopped at a place called Gilgandra, and it was like -1, -2. Yeah, got out of the swag in the morning, and it was all crinkly and crispy and frozen on top. So
if it's -1 or -2 overnight at Canberra, that'll be good. That's a good option. That's a good option. It'll be more than that.
Oh, stop it.
Well, it could be. You know, I'm no weatherman, or even the weatherman don't know the weather. But yeah.
All right. Do you have anything? We've gone for 2 hours. Do you have anything else to that you wanted to talk about for this one?
Just a couple of points that I mentioned before the show. There, it was cool to see Aaron Tanti. He was there. His bike was there, and his bike was on the back of his ute on Sunday night. And the talk is that he's taken a bike home and to start to do some riding, and that there's rumors, speculation that he'd be riding Supercross. So
yep. And what bike was it?
CDR with a number 9 on it. So
very cool.
Yep. There you go. And so that was cool. And then also I thought the whole deal with the breast cancer awareness, pink ribbon, graphics, gear, all that Honda did was really cool.
Yep.
It was awesome. It was awesome in that it's a great cause. There is probably nobody listening to this who hasn't had someone in their family or friends group that's had breast cancer. Like, it's that common, isn't it? It's crazy, you know.
Yeah, 1 in 7 women. So
I've had 2 aunties and a sister, and that's just how it is. It's a super common thing. I'm a person who I support regularly support a cancer charity myself, and I think that it was really cool. And then also alongside the good cause, the bikes looked awesome, and the gear looked awesome. So the look was great as well, which is really cool. So well executed. And then, and the gear is being auctioned, Pete. So
it is. So for the listeners, get onto it. You can find the link on the hondaracing.com.au website, and the actual auction is at shophondaracing.com/auction. So get onto it. All the gear that the riders wore on the weekend is being auctioned off for the National Breast Cancer Foundation charity. So, get onto it. It's a great cause. We had our own scare with my wife late last year, we're still going on. It didn't turn out to be breast cancer, but that's what our initial thoughts were. And definitely, like you said, we all know someone or more than one person that's been affected. So great cause, great initiative by Honda, and hopefully a lot of money gets raised.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's I love stuff like that. More of it, I say. Teams getting around causes and things like that. It's all it's great stuff.
Totally agree. All right. I think that brings us to the end of this episode. If you like this episode, don't forget to give us a positive review on your preferred podcast platform. Make sure you subscribe to Mental4Moto and turn on your notifications so you don't miss out on the next one. Massive thanks to you, Steve, for joining me again to co-host. For the listeners, make sure you go check out Steve's YouTube page, Rido Moto, and give him a like and subscribe and watch his interviews. He does some great interviews with all kinds of riders, and they're definitely a little bit different and, always lighthearted. You've always got some lighthearted questions which get the riders thinking too, don't you, Steve?
Yeah, get them thinking, and the goal a lot of the time is to get them smiling, and I pretty much always do. So that's the way I like to do things. Yeah,
that's awesome, man.
I like to shed light on the fun side of the sport.
Bring out the personalities.
That's my and it's just what I like to do. There's no sort of angle to that. That's genuinely what I like to do, and so that's what I'm doing. Yeah,
it's very cool, man. I definitely enjoy it. Massive thanks to our partners for bringing you this episode: One Thaggy Motorcycles and Power Equipment, Works Racing, Graphics by Aqua, Death Grip Products, Southeast Pools, Wolf Building Compliance, and the June sponsor of our motocross wall calendars, MX Conditioning Coach. And most of all, thanks to you guys for listening. On behalf of Mental4Moto, I've been your host, Pete Wolf. Until the next time, see ya.